Public school is dead. 2026, AI learning, new technologies, the rise of homeschooling, all of that's leading to home centered learning. In the homeschooling field, we've got almost 4 million of us strong and counting. And it's going to be exciting. More and more people are going to be learning just about anything they want to learn right in the comfort of their own homes. And so, in this episode, we're going to talk about all the reasons why people are pulling their kids out of public school and doing homeschooling, and why parents and individuals all over the United States are choosing to learn more at home and growing and developing on their own. So, we're going to explore all those reasons why public school is dead and why people are moving into home centered learning. Let's get at it. Well, my friend, and welcome to the Phillip Mason Show, where acquiring wisdom is king and pursuing education is a lifelong adventure. I'm your host, Phillip Mason, and I am delighted to be with you today. Right now in America, we're witnessing a very historic shift away from public schools towards home-centered learning. Homeschooling is no longer on the fringe. It's becoming mainstream, it's growing, and it's reshaping the future. Now's the time to get on the boat if you're not. I'm going to talk about why this is occurring. So home-centered learning is really witnessing a historic shift because families want freedom. They also want formation in their children. They want growth, development, transformation in their children. And they want a future for their children that aligns with the values that they have and that particular child's unique potential. What are their talents and gifts? How can they be used? How can they be tapped to help them really shine and really grow? So let's talk about this from a cultural perspective for a moment. Why are families turning homeward for education? Well, quite frankly, probably the number one reason is parents want to have more influence on their child's education. They're oftentimes tired of going to school, to parent-teacher conferences, and requesting this or that for their child and not seeing any change in their child, or the child is becoming more and more disgruntled or dissatisfied with school, or just flat out not making any progress, doesn't want to participate, whatever it is. The parents want to be able to have that direct contact with their child and take responsibility for their child's education. And it is the parents' responsibility to educate their child. So this attitude that's existed in the past of farming your child out to the education system is being reversed. And parents are saying, yeah, I want that control over my child's education. I want to be able to give them the very best. And a lot of parents, they have a custom worldview. And when you go to a public school system, you get one particular worldview, which sometimes can be very narrow. There's also a character to that worldview that the public schools portray, and there's also an identity attached to that character. And quite frankly, most families in America don't fit that anymore, because that character, that worldview that's taught in the public school system, it's changed so much over the decades that most families in America are having troubles relating to it, even remotely. And those that do are really seeing their children and the quality of their life going downhill, and seeing more and more difficulties in their child's life that really are the fruit of being in the public school system. And one of the reasons why this is happening is because evil is so persuasive and also so pervasive in our public school systems, and really just in the world. That you, as a parent, it's difficult to let your child leave the home because they're going to be exposed to so much. There's just, it's a snowstorm, it's a blizzard. They go out there in it. You just can't ignore the blizzard, right? Evil is out there in the world like a blizzard. It's everywhere around you. And so the best you can do for your children is protect them, bundle them up. At least that's what we've been telling ourselves for a long time. And that's what we still have to do. But we're also really realizing as parents now that we can keep our children at home and give them the training and the loving nourishment that they need to really blossom and grow and excel. We've had this misconception in our minds for a long time that our children, if they don't go to public schools, they're going to be sheltered. They're going to be hurt. They're not going to learn enough. They're not going to be socialized. They're going to be inept. They won't be able to function in society. And the reality is we're seeing a lot of these homeschoolers that are coming out of their homeschool program. They're able to function socially on a much higher level because they don't have all this baggage that public school students have, or at least a lot of them have. And they're able to have healthy relationships. They're able to communicate well. They have a good knowledge base. They're very wise in how they approach situations. They can problem solve. They have a morality about them. They know the difference between right and wrong. And just all these benefits come out of homeschooling your children that are just so real, so tangible. And you just can't replace that. And you're just not getting that in the public school system. And parents are recognizing that. And that's because in the home, you can teach what's good, you can teach what's right. Where there's just so much evil in the world today that it bleeds off and spills into the public school systems in so many different ways that you almost can't combat it anymore. Really, at this point, the best thing to do is to bring that child home and get them grounded, get them centered, and create a wonderful educational experience in the home for them. All that being said, we're seeing the parent becoming that primary educator, that center focus for the child in home-centered learning. The parent is really in charge, has that control, and parents love that. They love the fact that they get to be a parent, and a lot of parents are just frustrated because they see their kids come home, they're being manipulated, they're being taunted, they're being fed bad information, they're fed all sorts of garbage, and they have all sorts of complexity issues with their personality and with their identity and with their values and beliefs because of all these conflicts with other students at school. And sometimes it's conflicts with teachers and administrators too. And so the parents are becoming that center focused in their child's education, and they're becoming the primary educator in the home. And that's the way it should be. And it's a beautiful thing. Some families still send their kids off to different public schools for classes here or for sports or other extracurricular activities. And that's great. For every family, you get to customize it and make it what it should be. And that allows the parent to feel empowered and to feel like they're in control again of their child's destiny. So let's talk about some other reasons why parents are loving this. So the public school system is really set up as a one-size-fits-all education model. I like to call it the conveyor belt model. That's what my mentor, Oliver DeMille, describes it as the conveyor belt method. But it's also the one-size-fits-all method. You try to adjust that hat as much as you can, but sometimes that hat just doesn't fit right, doesn't look right. It's annoying. It scratches your head the wrong way, whatever. And having that custom hat, that custom fit makes all the difference when putting that hat on. And so our public schools are the same way. At home, in a homeschool program, you can customize it to your child. And a lot of times these children, they get lost in a system. These schools that are being built today are absolutely massive. They're huge. They're expensive. They're elaborate. When kids go to school, they can feel like they're going into a maze. And sometimes they feel like they're not going to come out. And when parents are going into these schools, sometimes they feel the same way too. They're not sure who to talk to, and they're not sure if they're going to get a good result out of talking to anyone about their child's education. And there can be so many factors with so many kids in these massive schools. And, a student may be bullied, and it may be incredibly difficult to identify who the bully is because there's so many kids involved, and no one will say anything, and no one will admit anything, and everything's kept hush hush. There's just all sorts of challenges. That's just one. But these schools are huge. And when you're at home with your child, you get that one-on-one time. And man, it is real. It's tangible. And parents see a huge difference in connecting with their child. And they have all that time back too. They just have so much more time with them. So with that customization that comes with homeschooling, you can pace how you teach your children to the level of your child. So some students are going to be able to move really quickly. Some are going to move slowly. I honestly, growing up, in elementary school, I was more concerned with the outdoors, with playing, doing sports, doing Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, whatever. And I was a very active boy. And I honestly could care less about reading, and it didn't come easily to me, and I struggled with it. And it really wasn't till the 5th grade when I really started to be able to read with good comprehension. And it really wasn't until the 6th grade that I became, uh, I would say, a very competent reader. And then over the next few years, I just really blossomed. And so most educators would call me a late bloomer because of that pattern that I follow. And I had friends, good friends, and they were reading in kindergarten. And here I was, 5th grade, finally like being able to read at a decent level. And so I was always in those remedial programs in first, second, third, and 4th grade. I always was. In 5th grade, I had a great teacher, Mr. Cooper. Things just kind of clicked. And, you know, the light came on in my brain. Whatever happened, I'm not sure what it is, but that's just the way I was constituted. Now, reading's not an issue for me as an adult now. I'm very competent at reading. It's something I do very well. But I have a lot of other friends that could do it a lot quicker. A lot of my classmates could do it a lot faster, a lot earlier in their progression than I could. And so that's the beauty of homeschooling is you can evaluate your child and just figure out where they're at. Growing up, my parents had this book. It's called Leo the Late Bloomer. It's this story of this tiger who really progresses and he's not like the other tigers. And eventually one day he blooms. I'm kind of like Leo the Late Bloomer. That's my story as a reader. And so as a parent in your custom homeschooling education, you can figure that out for each of your children. In my case, where I have 7 children, we've homeschooled 7. There are massive differences between all 7 of our children, and their personalities are so different as well. I have some of my children that really struggle with academics, and I have others of my children that just they're brilliant at it. It doesn't mean they both can't learn and can't both learn well and they can't grow and develop into something really wonderful. It's just we're all have different talents, different strengths and gifts. And so it's a parent's responsibility to identify what those are and focus on them. And so you can pace it properly. You can also style the education to fit the student. I had one particular student in the public school system, and his parent actually came to me, his mother came to me, and he said, "This is a classical school. You guys are really into the humanities, and all my son cares about is mathematics and science and numbers. He wants to be an engineer, and he doesn't feel like he's getting enough engineering stuff here at this school." And I just thought, move him. Take him to a school where he'll get that, because that's not the focus of the school that I'm at right now. So being an engineer is a very noble profession. That's how you create wealth in a nation. Engineering is how you create, you build. That's how you bring products to market that benefit mankind. It's a very noble profession. I have multiple family members that are in that profession. It's an excellent profession. But if that school's not suiting that child's needs, move them. And I think this parent initially, she was wanting me and wanting the school to change what we were doing so that he could have more math classes and have more engineering classes and more science classes, which we already had the state required number of classes, but she wanted more. And, I had a conversation with her at a later date with this mother, and her son had already transferred to another school. And she's like, yeah, he's happy, he's enjoying things. And I just said, I was just like, that's all it took, right? Just going to a different school. And she's like, yeah, that's all it took, just going to a different school. And she was able to customize what her son needed. Now, I would love her to take the next step and do it at home. And she's a very capable mother, and I think she could probably do much better at home with her son. But he's in a lot better situation, and parents feel empowered when they have that ability to change things. And sometimes parents want to force things, like if this curriculum's not working or if this school's not working, they want to force it and manipulate it and change the program. But reality is they can do a lot of those things at home by themselves, or they can go out and find a new program, or they can tap into technology that can create the experience that they want for their child. So don't be afraid to pivot and change as a parent with homeschooling. Okay, so let's move on here. So talking about technology now, the digital revolution is huge, and that's one of the reasons why homeschooling is becoming such a big hit. The internet, Google search was revolutionary in education. It's been a total game changer. We started homeschooling about 22 years ago. My wife and I did, and the internet has made it so easy. There's so many amazing resources on the internet for helping your child grow and develop. And now we're here in this age of artificial intelligence. AI is going to be this powerful tool for gathering knowledge, where in the past, one of the things that held parents back is they have felt like, I'm not good at calculus, or I'm not good at English, or I'm not good at grammar. I'm not good at Spanish, or whatever it is they want their child to learn. And so in their mind, they automatically think, I can't homeschool my kids. It's a lost cause. I can't do it. But AI is going to be a total game changer because now parents, where they feel deficient, there are plenty of homeschool programs out there outside of AI and also within AI that help bring that subject and make it real and alive for the student and have this adaptive learning model where, for example, if you're doing algebra or calculus, the student can go in there and do a problem. If the student does it incorrectly, AI can actually just come in and say, this is where you went wrong in your steps. Or, you were going through the quadratic formula and you skipped this step right here. So let's go back and try that again, and the student's able to go back and correct it. And if the student's not able to make that correction, then AI comes in and says, okay, this is actually what you need to be doing here, your next step. So try this next step in this manner. And then they would lay it out for it. So AI can actually act as a personal tutor, which is remarkable. And, it's fun for parents because sometimes parents, they may be a little rusty on their algebra or their calculus, their geometry or their trigonometry, or, even long division, whatever it is. And they can double check their answers on AI. And so it's just a very powerful tool. And that'll continue to develop. There'll be more and more resources. And we're starting to even see a lot of charter schools and starting to use AI as well as homeschools. So it'll be exciting to see how things go. I think we're going to see students learning more in shorter periods of time, gaining that knowledge. However, with homeschooling, the beauty of it is really learning how to read and write and communicate and discuss and being able to put things into action, being able to put things into practice. That's where that wisdom comes into play, to be able to make right choices, to be able to do scenarios, to be able to do case studies, to be able to work through simulations, and to be able to help their student be able to make real world decisions and build real lasting wisdom. And that's just flat out going to be one of the most powerful things about homeschooling, is equipping students to do that above and beyond just gaining knowledge, which for a lot of parents, AI is going to be able to help them fill in the gaps or in those areas where they don't have the knowledge base. It'll just be a phenomenal game changer. So micro schools, hybrid academies, charter schools, online resources, AI learning models, there's just so much potential there. AI can even help your child prepare for college entrance exams, so on and so forth. Okay, so, if we talk a little history here, so there's some major transformations that happen in our country with homeschooling. So post 2020, most families were still not doing homeschooling, but homeschooling was becoming a powerhouse nonetheless, quietly. In that time leading up to 2020, my wife and I saw quite a few people that were joining the homeschooling bandwagon. We had a lot of people asking us about it. And then once 2020 hit and we had the whole world shut down basically with COVID-19, families just realized, okay, this is the moment I've been waiting for to homeschool my child. It took a world pandemic, a world calamity for them to make that decision, but they did, and they did it well, and a lot of families executed, and so we're seeing record numbers of families homeschooling. It's not just America; it's all across the globe in different areas. It's interesting from 2020 to 2025. We've seen a lot of families realizing, hey, I can do this at home. There's a lot of great resources, a lot of great technology. This is actually easier and better than what I was expecting, and I'm happier. My students happier, and I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm not going to send them back to the school that I had them at before, and I'm going to save drive time. I'm going to save money. I'm going to have just a happier family life, and for them, it's just a no-brainer. They're going to go and do it. And so a lot of people, even after the pandemic ended, they stayed in homeschool mode and they kept going with it. So we're seeing millions of people discovering this home-centered learning model, and it's a beautiful thing. And they're not going back, not going back. So I want to talk about we've talked a little bit about culturally how things have been rolling out here in America. Now I want to switch gears. I want to talk about the educational case for homeschooling, why home-centered learning works. So with homeschooling, you get personalized learning. So as we talked about before, children learn at different speeds and in different ways. And so home education program allows for mastery. And oftentimes in public school systems, it's a conveyor belt method, meaning the education comes in, the knowledge comes in, and it goes out just as quickly as it came in. And if the student doesn't grab it and absorb it in that time, they're going to lose it. Whereas in a homeschool environment, there's not a rush. The student's there, they've got the topic, they've got the curriculum, they've got the book, they've got the parent, they've got the AI technology, they've got the dictionary, they've got it all right there. And there's no outside influence. There's not a teacher, there's not a peers that are going to distract them. They're not worried about the sports game that they have to leave for on the bus in just a few minutes. They're not worried about all these other distractions that they have. They're not worried about the cute girl over there that they want to ask to the dance, or the person that they're worried about across here that's going to throw spit wads at them, whatever it is. They're not having that distraction, and they're at home. They're with mom or dad, and they're able to just take all those materials and just delve into it and explore it and enjoy it. And the retention level goes way up, and it makes a huge difference. So mastery of the subject, mastery of the topic versus seat time is huge with homeschooling. So in a public school, it's all about your time to seat, and it's about your seniority, really. You literally go from, kindergarten all the way up to being a senior, and you're putting your time in that seat. Public school can be very inefficient. There's a lot of wasted time in public schools, and that time that's wasted, you can be using that to learn, and then you can actually have leftover time in your day to go do things you actually want. So maybe it is that sports game, maybe it is that dance, maybe it's dance classes, maybe you want to go exploring. I know of a young man who loves the outdoors, and so he can go hunting, and then sometimes he'll animals that he gets, he'll actually skin them, stretch them, and dry and tan the hides, just like old timers do, old time trappers do, and use that hide for different projects. That's kind of just a random example, but anything's possible, whatever your child's interested in. And with homeschooling, you also have stronger outcomes. So studies across the board are showing that homeschoolers typically outperform national averages in reading and writing and critical thinking, and in just being able to communicate. And it's not because parents are the experts. It's not because parents are the experts, but it's because of the environment. It's because that home is a place of love. It's a place of focus. It's a place where relationships are built and trust is built, and where there's flexibility to do what feels right in the moment. If you wake up and you're feeling fantastic and you want to go read for 4 hours straight in a heavy classical novel, then you can do that. If you wake up and you feel like tackling your algebra and you want to solve a bunch of problems, or if you want to go and read what some of the great mathematicians wrote about their theories, you can go do that. If you want to learn about archery, or if you want to learn about human biology, you can go and do that. You can spend a bunch of time on it and not worry about, do I have to get the third period pretty soon, then the fourth period, and what time's lunch, and what's the combo to my locker? I don't remember. And gosh, oh, here comes this guy that's going to punch me in the face again. These are all things that you kids worry about in the public school systems. And at home, a lot of that just like is not there. And they're able to really focus their minds and become powerful scholars. And they can learn all sorts of different topics and they can go really deep on them. And it's awesome. So really, I think the emphasis here is love motivates the learning that occurs in the home. And I'm not saying that teachers in charter schools or public schools or private schools that they don't love their students. There's many wonderful teachers out there who absolutely love their students in a very, very good and wonderful professional way. But you can't top the love of a parent, period. Like you just can't. The love of a parent is so powerful, so motivating to a child, especially a good, wholesome parent who's trying their best to do what's right and who's studying and learning on their own and striving to become a better teacher themselves. Like that parent's untouchable, and you can't replace that. You just can't. Okay, so let's talk about real world learning here for a moment. And this falls under the educational case too. So you can teach life skills at home that they're not going to get in the public school system. So, how do you use an ironing board? How to use an iron? How do you iron your shirt? How to use a washer and dryer? How do you cook? My kids are way better culinary experts than I ever was at their age, and probably even now. Their mother's done such a great job teaching them how to cook in the kitchen, and it's part of their homeschooling routine. They get home ec. Their mom teaches them home ec, teaches them culinary science. I have some of my boys that produce amazing meals on their own, and I have one boy who started a bread making business, and he sells his bread out out to people. Has a stand there on the highway, and he sells out every time. Delicious homemade bread. And he's learning how to run a business, learning how to be an entrepreneur, learning how to be a baker, and his micro baking business is done really well. And he's had a lot of fun with it. Mom's had fun teaching him. And so has dad. So those life skills, that entrepreneurship, chores around the house, like, really anything you do as a family can be integrated into your homeschool routine. So your chores, teaching your children to take care of things around the home is really important. So if you think about, in our home, we have a little chicken farm on our property, and our children learn how to raise chickens, to care for them, to meet their needs, and it's their everyday responsibility that they have, and it's part of their learning how to farm is part of their chores. There's apprenticeships. There's internships that students can do. There's many opportunities there where they can go out. One of the things that one of my sons has been interested in is going to a police academy for youth in the community and being able to learn if law enforcement's a possible career path they want to take. I have a daughter that's really been into vocal performance and dance and theater. And she's been able to go out in the community and work as an assistant teacher to the main teacher, helping some of the younger students learn ballet. And she's really just grown and blossomed with that. So those hands-on experiences are super powerful, and it sure beats sitting in a desk for 6 to 8 hours a day in a public school system. When at home you can put your 4 hours in doing your book learning, and then you can spend another 2 to 4 hours going out and having experiential learning with homeschooling. And it's fantastic. Okay, so we need a mindset shift. And this is why parents love the educational part of homeschooling so much, is because everything that a parent does can be an educational lesson for their child. They can teach their child about finance, about budgeting. This is how we do a family budget. This is how we evaluate our expenses. This is where our family income is. This is how we pay taxes. All of those things can be huge skills and life lessons for that child. And so learning becomes life. Learning becomes life with homeschooling, with home-centered learning. You're always learning. So one of my favorite questions that I love to ask my children at the end of the day is, what did you learn? Let's talk about what you learned. And, we don't compartmentalize learning in our homeschool program. And Where in a public school system, you do that. You put education into silos and you compartmentalize it. In homeschooling at home, everything is a learning experience. You're always learning. Anything you do is a learning experience. So, for example, if I have to do some maintenance on the car and it's not something I'm going to take to a mechanic, I bring my kids along and they watch how I do the maintenance on the car so that they know how to do it themselves. They know how to check the fluids. They know how to, change a tire. They know how to change bulbs. They know how to change batteries, whatever it is. They, I'm going to teach them how to do it. Doing projects with dad is a great way to learn. Also, under this educational case, we've been talking about the educational case for why home-centered learning works. So my last thing that I'd like to talk about here is just freedom. There's just this beautiful freedom to pursue your interest, and you can go deep in the trades, in history. You can go into science. You can explore the arts, or like my son with the bread baking business, you can go into entrepreneurship. But this freedom just cultivates just amazing passion and curiosity and self-motivation, which for most of the time in the public school system, that's lacking for most students. So this really does cultivate passion, curiosity, and self-motivation when we homeschool at home, where they just have that freedom to explore and to learn. Curiosity is a powerful motivation tool. And, you find out what your kids are interested in and you pursue that. Rabbit trails are okay with home education. Doesn't mean you don't stick to your curriculum, but it also means that you depart from it when it feels right, when it's the right thing to do, and when you're learning, because that's healthy learning. And that's the way children should learn, which that's not the way it is in public schools. A teacher can't afford to spend time going down rabbit trails. And when they do, it becomes a problem, right? And they get disciplined for it, or they get complained to about by other parents or other students. So teachers can't go down rabbit holes. They have to stay very focused, very concise on their curriculum. But at homeschool, you're going to hit your basics for sure, but you're going to go down those rabbit holes. You're going to follow the interests of your student and find what it is they're curious about. And that's the beauty of homeschool, is that freedom to pursue the course that you want to go down. Okay, so I want to talk now about the civic case for education. So previously we've talked about the cultural case and we've talked about the educational case. And now we're going to talk about the civic case for why home-centered schooling or home-centered learning is so vital and matters in a big way here in America. We live in a free society. The United States of America was set up as a free society. Now, granted, I know some of you will say we're not very free anymore. And that's my point exactly, is that if you want to stay free, you have to have free thinkers. If you want to stay free, you have to have people who are learning the principles of freedom, who understand government structures, who understand the importance of the U.S. Constitution. Those things are not being taught in the public school systems, but they can be taught in your home, my friend. You are very much qualified to teach them, probably more so than you know. And where you have doubts, that's a beautiful time for you to open the book and start reading. Read from the best books, the great books, our great national books. Study them and learn them, and then pass on that fervor for education to your children. And they will love you for it, and you'll love learning with them. It'll be a beautiful synergy. Students need to be able to learn to challenge assumptions, and they need to be able to learn to pursue truth, and they need to learn to ask questions, good questions, and hard questions, and to be able to think independently about those and be able to research and to find answers to those questions, and not just to throw anything off the top of their head at it, but really to research and to learn and to study, and then to make a really good, calculated and deliberate answer that's been well formulated. That's really important. When we homeschool, that really binds the family together. When you're having those activities where you're together, most families in America spend very little time with each other on a weekday basis. But if that child's home all day long, or at least for a part of the day with homeschool, then they get so much more parent time, and there's so much more opportunity for the parent to influence that child. And those family ties just become stronger and stronger. And we really need strong families in order for America to work, for the United States to work. Strong families have always been the basis of a successful United States of America. And it was founded that way, and it's been that way for hundreds of years now, 250 years now plus, as a nation. And but even before the United States was formed, America, um, for a long time before that, had very strong, healthy families, healthy economies, healthy marriages, healthy parent-child relationships. And that's one of the things that's been a defining characteristic of America. And homeschooling will help us get back to that, because we've lost that as a nation. And we need to have strong families, because the family is the basic unit of society. And if we have parents who love each other, and we have parents who love their children and have a lot of good time with them, and the family's bound through those common principles and values, America's going to be unstoppable. America's going to accomplish great things, and it's going to be a land of happiness. It's going to be a land of joy and prosperity. And that's what America's always stood for. And so homeschooling is going to be one of those key factors that helps us get back to that as a nation in a really big way. And, it just kind of snowballs. So strong families create those strong communities create strong states, and strong states create a strong federal government. And, we need citizens that are capable of self-government. When you're teaching your child and you're pouring those values and those morals and that wisdom into your child about the difference between right and wrong, that's irreplaceable. When that child goes out in the world, they're going to be able to make good decisions and be self-governing. It's really easy for our government to work well when everybody's righteous and trying to do the right thing and trying to be moral and uphold the law and uphold good laws. But when people do whatever they want and they're immoral and they seek after evil things, then that's when our government starts going downhill. That's when our country starts going down a very treacherous path, and that leads oftentimes to destruction or to serious damage. And so having a self-governing people is very important, and homeschooling, home learning can get us there. Also, the liberal arts education used to be kind of the standard thing here in America, but we've lost that. There's still a few pockets here and there in America where liberal arts is still important. But with homeschooling, we're seeing a huge surge and revival in liberal arts, because we realize that we're missing the wisdom component of learning. The public schools are really good at dumping facts in a conveyor method type approach into people's brains. They're just dumping facts and figures into people's brains. And with a home-centered learning, you're doing more than just gaining knowledge. It's more than just facts and figures, but you're also seeking for that wisdom, for that morality, for that ability to be a powerful decision maker, and to be able to identify a problem and then to go solve it. And you just can't replace that. And the public schools have failed to do that. Home-centered learning will be irreplaceable in that way because of the capabilities that are built into those children that go through homeschool. So that's my civic case of why homeschooling matters in America. And the United States desperately needs to be a nation that has better education. We need to educate a better class of citizens who are resilient, who are innovative, who move forward with ingenuity, who can make good laws, and who are capable of following good laws. And that'll be really critical going into the 21st century. Okay, so I just want to share with you just 3 quick stories here about why home-centered learning works. I'm not going to share names, but these are all real individuals that I'm thinking about who have had experiences, and I can name many more, but we'll keep it brief. So one of the things I've noticed with families that go into homeschooling is that they rediscover their child. So a lot of parents get really frustrated with the child, and they have a lot of gripes about their child. My child can't do this. My child did this. My child got in trouble. What's wrong with my child? And is my child really this horrible? And then they make that switch out of public schools, and they head to homeschooling. And after a few months, even after, sometimes even after just a few weeks, they see this change, this transformation come over their child, and they can't even believe it's the same child anymore. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes a year. But this child starts to change and starts to transform, and the stress levels go down and the motivation goes up, and everything just clicks. And all of a sudden the parents realize, this is my real son. This is my real daughter. Everything's clicking together. This is the child I always knew they could be. I'm thinking of one particular student. A student suffered from A lot of behavior issues, a lot of anxiety. This student even got to the point where uh, he had suicidal thoughts. And he also struggled a lot with boredom. He was a very intelligent individual. And what was happening in the schools was not fulfilling him intellectually. And so that boredom was a very big factor in him not being satisfied at school. He's since had an opportunity to be taught and trained at home by his parents, and he has blossomed and he's been able to focus on his passion of mathematics. He's just really good with math and with numbers, and he continues to grow. And he's a healthy, progressing individual. He also has a lot of medical issues, and so his parents are able to better handle his medical issues and his time spent at doctor's offices and in surgery because he's not in public school. And so that's been a huge blessing for them. I'm thinking of another student. This particular student was just kind of wandering and really didn't seem to have an interest in anything. This teen also struggled with autism, but he had an interest in welding. He had an interest in construction, and he found out that he could do it. And so he actually took a separate program, learned how to weld, and he now works with his father's construction company. Is now a very capable adult and was able to learn just fine at home and learn some very good skills and be very productive member of society that way. And I think one of the things that's key here is that he was able to master a skill and was able to focus on it rather than worried about what my grades are going to be at school or what college am I going to get into. Okay. And I'm thinking of another student, and this particular student, I could tell his parents were getting really frustrated with the school that he was attending, and they felt that their student was going down the wrong path morally. They were frustrated because the student was kind of getting lost in himself, and he wasn't outwardly focused, and he was losing interest in things really quickly. They were worried that this student would soon self-destruct through his own bad habits, his own bad behavior. They actually pulled him out, and he had an opportunity to study and learn on his own. And the parents were able to kind of reclaim their family values and be able to instill them in this child and help them to grow and develop. They were able to help keep this child from potentially ending up in a police car or potentially ending up in a jail cell, potentially not being able to hold a job very easily because of bad decisions and bad behavior. And honestly, public school can be like a paper shredder. When it comes to values and morals, a lot of times, parents will teach their children one thing at home, and then for 6 to 10 hours at school, all the morals and values that child just learned went through a paper shredder. And by the time that child gets home, all the parent has to work with is shreds, and the parent has to almost start over from the beginning and just reteach that over again because there was just so many powerful magnetic influences at school that just shredded all of that good that the parent had planted into that student. So just to recap. So 3 different families that I was thinking of: the family that rediscovered their child, the teen who found their calling, and the family who reclaimed their values and saved their child from going down the wrong moral path. So I think those are the great benefits and blessings of homeschooling that many families are finding. Really, the future belongs to home-centered learning and home-centered families. We have a lot of families in America that are not home-centered. They're focused on work, they're focused on school, they're focused on activities. What should be happening at home is not happening at home. They're not home-centered families, and there's no home-centered learning going on. And everything is farmed out. The parents farm out everything. They farm their kids out to experts all over the place on all sorts of things, on every issue. And even on those families where the parents don't farm their kids out on everything, they're still sending them to public school, and it's still doing a tremendous amount of damage. So just know this: the movement is growing. You're part of that movement, and that number rises every year. There's millions of people that are doing it. This is a real trend. It's going to continue moving forward. Public schools are dead, and home learning is here to stay. I'm telling you, this is the wave of the future. Now, that doesn't mean public schools are going to go away. Once you institute a government program, it's pretty much guaranteed to stick around for a long time, unless there's a major event that happens where everyone decides to shift at once. And then sometimes you can get government programs to go away, but usually they stick around forever and ever. What I mean by public school is dead is people are ready for more. They're ready to get back to their roots. They're ready to get back to their values. They're ready to get back to having happy families and happy children again. They're ready to get back to the call to wisdom and to be wise and smart and good decision-making people again, who are good governing citizens of their nation and good self-directed and self-governing individuals and families. So I just want to make a call to you, my friend. Just understand, I'm here rooting for you. The reason why I'm doing this podcast is I want to encourage all parents to homeschool, but particularly to you, my friend, to know that you don't need to be perfect to do homeschooling. I'm certainly not perfect, and I have many deficiencies when it comes to my own personal education, but there's ways to overcome that. There's so many opportunities out there to learn and grow yourself and to learn and grow along with your child. So you don't have to be perfect to start. Just know that. And I also want you to know that you don't have to know everything. You can start learning. Your child can start learning. There's great books out there. There's great homeschool co-ops. There's great AI programs. There's great resources on the internet. There's great homeschool curriculum programs. Use them. Just know that you can do it. And just know that all you need to do is simply lead out. Take the helm, take the charge, take the steering wheel, move forward, lead your family forward, and help your children learn and enjoy the process. Have fun with it. Have an exploring heart and an inquisitive mind, and it'll pay off. But just know that you can do this. So my one final message here is also understand that home-centered learning is not about academics. It's much more than that. Of course, you do the academics, you do the learning. But with home-centered learning, we're here to reclaim our hearts. We're here to reclaim the heart of education, to have a true liberal arts education, to be able to build wisdom and to build good character in our children, where they're able to function at very high levels, to make wonderful decisions, to be able to understand truth and light, and to make correct decisions over and over again, very consistently. And when life's hard or they have a difficulty or a challenge, that they're resilient, that they buck up, that they have grit, they get up and they try again and they keep working and they don't ever give up. So this movement of home-centered learning is really about raising wise, grounded, resilient young men and young women who can lead America into the future. It's about getting little children out of preschool and out of daycares and teaching them at very young ages when their brains are growing at such a rapid pace, and they're so greatly influenced at those young ages. Even at age 3, scientists know that the brain rapidly grows, and it's a wonderful time for students to memorize and to learn facts and figures and to absorb a lot of things from mom and dad. And it's actually a really great time for students to learn a new language, multiple languages. At age 3, you're even at that young age, being in an institution is not good for young children. And so parents need to grab that opportunity and be able to teach them at home. We need moms and dads at home with their children and help nurturing them and loving them. America will be totally different. We can save America. We can save our family. And I have trust in you. I have faith in you that you can do this. And I'm rooting you on, and let's go do this. Thank you so much for being with me today here on the Phillip Mason Show. I've just really enjoyed our time together. I look forward to visiting with you on our next episode. Take care.